Pastor Tommy Smith wept when he heard that the man who fired the shot that killed his son later died the same way. Why? Because by living his faith, he had found healing in forgiveness. His is a story of justice as healing, and in his case, a large measure of grace. Justice is accountability plus healing. Justice is making things right. This is Justice Voices. Pastor Tommy Smith, welcome to our program.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, you and I met just last Saturday down in East St. Louis. Our previous two guests, Skyla Pawnell and Gloria Hicks, invited me to an event down there, which was a Wear Orange event for National Crime Survivors Week or Weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And you were on a panel with the two of them. And as I listened to you talk, I thought, I need to have Pastor Tommy Smith, as a guest on Justice Voices. And so I talked to you about it. And here you are. And we really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate it.
You live in Cahokia Heights, which is right there, part of the greater East St. Louis area. And that's a pretty high crime area.
Yes, it is.
And in fact, gun crime has touched you very closely in your family. You lost a son to gun violence.
Yes, sir. Yes, I did. In 1999. Dantes Lamar Smith.
Dantes Lamar Smith.
Yes. Yeah.
And I want to hear what happened and how you dealt with that. But your grief was compounded because within a week you also lost your wife in a tragic car accident.
Yes, I did. Her name was Tawana Jean Fenderson Smith.
Almost killed you.
Yes, it did. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and you've written a book, and I got a copy of that book, the Amazon copy, holding it up here, Living Triumphantly After Tragedy.
Yes.
And in that, you tell your story. Now, you're a man of faith, and that is really the central part of your story of how you dealt with that and how you've experienced healing from it. But I want to talk about what happened, what you experienced, and how you dealt with it. So first of all, let's start with your son, Dantes Lamar Smith. How old was he when he was killed?
Dantes was 16 years old. He was 16. Young man, vibrant, very smart, intelligent, fun to be around, like to joke and play around and different things like that. But it never expected anything like this to happen.
What I'd like to know is a little bit about Dantes. You know, you say he was a fun guy to be around. What did he love? What were your hopes and dreams? What were his hopes and dreams as far as a 16-year-old has them?
Yeah. Well, he loved playing basketball. That was his number one thing he liked doing, playing basketball. He would go out to the courts and play basketball with his brothers. He had two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother. And they would go out and play basketball. He liked to show off, dribble between his legs, like young kids do, teenagers do. The other thing, he liked to play his game, his Genesis game. And we would always, I would always get with him and we'll play Madden football. And we always compete with each other, and he would do his best to try to beat me. But I'm competitive myself, okay? Son or no son.
You weren't cutting him any slack, huh?
I wasn't cutting him any slack at all. He even playing basketball when he was out on the courts, just, trying to teach him, some lessons, not only just basketball, but life lessons, you know, team sport, being respectful when you're playing the game or when you're out there in the streets and stuff like that. So definitely was an exciting kid to be around. You would feel his energy if you was around him.
Yeah. In your book, you tell about having had a premonition, one that you kind of shrugged off, but kind of a premonition that something might happen. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah. My mother had a younger brother. His name, uh, Kiki. His name was Kiki, and he was killed when he was 16. Him and some friends had broke into a restaurant, and when the owner ended up shooting him or killing him, and he was actually shot in his head. Family was devastated. So one day I was just sitting on my bed and just going through the family album, and one of the pictures was Kiki, my uncle. And all of a sudden, this big premonition just came before my face. I just seen this vision just right before my face, right? And I seen Dantes, you know, as he was. I saw a gate, a fence, and I just saw him getting shot. And that was months before he was actually killed. I didn't say anything about it because, I didn't want people to think I was just, I'm in church now, and you know how they think about church people, right? They kind of a little fanatic or whatever, and I didn't want to, you know, say anything at the time because, I just thought it like a little vision, whatever that came about. But it actually happened just that way. When I found out he was killed at the skating ring, this was the vision I saw.
So tell us what happened as far as you know.
hmm as far as I know, of what I had heard, from my oldest son, he was walking. Him and some friends was walking. They just left the skating ring, and as they was walking down the street, some other guys was behind them, and they said they were just shooting up in the air, but somehow someone shot at him, and one of the bullets hit him in the back of the head. And I did not know what was going on until my son had called me. My oldest son called me. I was at church every Friday. We would go to church, me and my wife, for service. And when he called me, he told me, Dantes had been shot, and he told me what hospital he was in. Immediately, I left the church and I went to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, he was just laying. They had him laying down on the bed, and they had trying to give him oxygen to help him breathe. And people just kept coming in all through at the time, trying to see what happened. The family members, I went to him and I prayed over him. I anointed his head with oil, and I told him, I believe I told him, I'm praying for you. And I felt his body move. I felt he moved his head and that he was hearing what I was saying as I was speaking to him. And finally, someone came in and said, "Well, there's nothing they can do." The hospital said there was nothing they can do, uh, and would we like to donate his organs? At the time, I was kind of hesitant about it. Uh, and it said afterwards they would try 3 times, and then at midnight, if nothing don't happen, then they have permission, they could just unplug them.
Now, if I understand right from your book, when you say they were going to try 3 times, they had him on a ventilator. Is that right?
Yes, yes,
So he was being kept alive by the ventilator.
yes,
And what they were going to do was attempt to see if he could breathe and continue to be alive. His body would function and his brain would function if they took him off the ventilator.
correct,
And they would give that 3 attempts over a period of time.
correct.
That would be hard on you as a parent.
hmm Very hard. At the time when they told me that and we left the hospital, I went home over my mother's house and I prayed. I said, Lord, uh, you have to do something. I sit there and pray. And I thought about David, when his son was sick and he sit there and prayed and prayed and prayed. Even though friends was telling him, get up. And I mean, he wouldn't eat or anything. And I did the same thing. I just sit there and prayed. And at least up past 12 o'clock. And I just prayed. I said, Lord, you're going to have to do something. I knew it was all out of my hands at the time. And the only thing I could do was pray and ask God to intervene.
And in fact, they did try at intervals over the next, if I remember right, couple days, something like that.
Yeah.
They would try to see if he could live without artificial life support.
Correct.
And on each of those three occasions, the answer was no.
Correct. He could not live on his own or breathe on his own without the oxygen.
Now, this was a situation where they then presented you with the question, would you be willing to consent to donate his organs, which, since he died of a head wound, was being kept alive only by artificial life support, those organs would still be in good shape and could be used to bless the lives of other people. At the same time, it's a hard thing, right?
Very hard decision.
Talk to us about that.
And I know people was, after the fact, people were telling me I wouldn't have did that, or, I would have made a different decision or something like that. But you don't know what you're doing until it happened to you. We made a decision, and I think it was a good decision because other people was able to, enjoy his organs. He was vibrant, real healthy. He wasn't a sickly child. And if we could heal somebody or bless somebody else, or somebody else can live off of his organs, I think we made the best decision that we could have made. Now, it wasn't easy, but it was the best decision, and I had to live with that.
People who donate those organs literally save lives. I have signed my organ donor consent on my driver's license, and when I die, I don't need those parts anymore. I'll get them back in the resurrection. And in the meantime, if someone can use those and their life can be blessed by it, it's a hard thing, but it's the right thing in my mind.
It is. And I was very convinced, and his mother was convinced that we did the right thing.
And then you lost your wife unexpectedly in a car crash when a semi-truck crashed into you.
Yeah, and we was only married for a year, me and Tawana. She was a minister too, and she loved God. She loved singing. She loved dancing. She was just a joy to be around. And that week, she was always, talking to me, checking on me, because a lot of people feel like it hadn't hit me yet that I lost my son. Okay, and it hit me. It just God was dealing with me differently than most people. When you said that my faith was really grounded, that's what I felt because of, my studying, and I just feel the love of God and his protection around me during that time. So just to go back, so after Dantes passed, we was preparing for his funeral. His wake was coming up that Friday. And me and my wife, we went to pick up one of our family members, my sister. who had flew in for Dantes' funeral. So we took my sister and her husband over my mom's house. Uh, Went over there, had a good time, sad, but at the same time, laugh, enjoying each other's company. So late on in the evening, me and the wife decided to head back home. We stayed in Cahokia at the time, and my mother stayed in East St. Louis. So it was a pretty good, maybe about 10 to 15 minutes drive home. So as we got on the Poplar Street Bridge, that's when the incident happened where a tanker truck, she was driving, my wife was driving, and I was on the passenger side. And that's when a tanker truck fell on top of our car and killed her instantly.
It just crushed your car, didn't it?
It just crushed the car. If if you ever saw the car, I made some videos of the car. I have, along with the book, I have a video called "Living Triumphantly After Tragedy," and it shows all the stuff that happened all the way up to the accident, and even things God had done with me afterwards. But anyway, yeah, the car was crushed. Crushed. Uh, I got out the car, looked up to heaven, and I'm asking God, "Hey, what's going on here?" I'm sitting there questioning because I'm thinking, Lord, God, we go to church and we have Bible study. We're starting a business, we had started talking about and working on a business where we was going to do marriages. She was going to do the flowers and the cabarets and stuff. And I was going to do the counseling and do the weddings and stuff. So we had already started that. Matter of fact, the day we went and picked up my sister, my wife, she went and bought two large heart wreaths. And they had been sitting at the house for a while. But that night, when we went to pick up my sister, she said, I don't want to leave until I finish these two hearts. And these was two giant hearts. They was connected together. And so she ended up finishing those two hearts, decorating them and everything, and she put them on the wall. And then that's when we left. And then after that, that's when all the tragedy happened. And I keep thinking about those two hearts. I say, good Lord, that was for me. You knew this day was going to come. You knew this day was going to come. That you allowed her to finish putting those two hearts on that wall. Something for I can always remember, and the love that she had for me. God is amazing. And so the day of the accident, when the tanker truck was falling on our, crashing down on our car, I had been telling people weeks. One of my pastor, her brother went to the hospital, and I went to the hospital with him to help out or visit. And I'm sitting in the hospital, and I'm telling him, I'm saying, I feel like I'm in a bubble. Things trying to get in, can't get in, but I can get out. And this was even before Dantes had passed. So when that tanker truck was crashing down on the car, that's what I felt. I said, that was the bubble. That's what God was showing me. I didn't even know that this was getting ready to happen. But as that car was coming down, I feel like in between, I was protected. And even though I lost my wife, which was very hurtful or very hard, but I do remember those incidents, what God was showing me. Yeah. Yeah.
Pastor Smith, I am confident that your wife continues to minister on the other side of that veil, and God has a purpose for you. In the course of your experience, healing from these tragedies, and I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah.
But you've also been able to help others because you live in a community that is familiar with tragedy.
Yes. Yeah. That's amazing. I keep trying to think, ask God, what's my purpose? Why is I here? Why you spared me? Even after the accident and after losing a son, I find myself just ministering to other people. And even in the hospital, people will come and check on me after the accident, the car and stuff. And I find myself praying for people, laying oil on them and speaking over their life. And the news people came and, interviewed me and asked me how I felt. And I told them, I shared with them how I was feeling and stuff. But it was just something different, that was going on in my life that my heart felt that other people needed, was hurting just as much as I was hurting. And God allowed me to pray for so many people and lay hands on so many people. And so I believe with that, with my studying, and I stayed in Psalms 91. That was one of my favorite scriptures. He that dwell in the secret place of the Almighty, you know. And when I got out the car for my wife's funeral, I heard one pastor say this, and as I was getting out the car, he said this, that he must have been in a secret place. He must be in a secret. He must have been in a secret place, because how could he deal with what he was dealing with, and still stand the way I stand, that the Lord allowed me to stand. And so what it allowed me to do is, as I continue reading, I just saw that God allowed me to see that there were so many people in need, where, I spent a lot of time learning the Bible, learning how to mentor and talk to other people, and to have empathy and compassion about what they was going through. And so during the course of my son dying and my wife dying, there was multiple deaths, family, friends that was dying at the same time, car accidents, one of the family members getting shot. And so there was constantly a need, and people was constantly calling on me to pray for them, and, to come over and lay hands on them and different things. So that's where I found myself constantly praying for people. Even though I needed something from God, it would be time that I would go out in the field after I did all the ministry with everybody else. I would go out. My mother stayed by a big field. I would go out to the field and I would just look up to heaven and I would just cry and ask the Lord, what's going on? What do you want me to do? That was my point of release. That was my point of healing, and asking God, why me? Why did you choose me to do this? He gave me an answer, David.
Tell us about that.
After all the time I'm asking God, why me? And he had me to go to Isaiah 43:7. And the scriptures say, because you are called by my name, you are created for my glory. When he showed me that, I stopped asking him why. Because I am called by his name and I am created for his glory. So whatever he needed to use me for, that he can get the glory, I was willing to submit myself to it.
Well, God bless you.
Yeah.
I think about this. We are all the children of God.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
my faith tradition, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We believe, and I deeply believe, it's spiritual confirmation that we are the literal spirit offspring of God.
Yes. Yes.
We are children of God. Not just a nice thing to say, but we really are. And that changes how we look at things and experience things. It changes how we look at God, how we look at each other. But one of the things, of course, that is part of the purpose of mortality is to strive to become more like our Heavenly Father, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, we are all his children, and he, having perfect empathy, experiences, and Jesus Christ experienced in his atonement all of this pain and suffering that his
Yes, yes,
children go through. And if we're going to become like them, like our Heavenly Father, like Jesus Christ, in my view, sometimes we're called upon to experience pain and suffering so that we know how to succor and help heal and be instruments in the hands of God. If we have not been touched by tragedy, how can we reach out with a healing heart and minister to people who are experiencing that? And you've gone through that. It is
mm-hmm.
no, I mean, I just have such respect for you
Thank you.
being able to receive that, because not everybody receives that gift, that grace.
Yeah, yes, yes, yeah,
And then to take that and in the midst of your grief, help others with their trauma and their grief.
yeah.
And you found healing in that.
That's right. That's right. I did, and funny you say that. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, uh, I didn't know what God was doing with me, or what His plans He had for me, but I know that He was directing me in a different path than others. And I shared with them. I said, my aunt, she wrote a book, a couple of books on our genealogy, and as I was reading it, I was reading about so many of my family members. They was pastors and ministers, even back way back during slavery time.
Literally in your blood.
It's in my blood. It's in my blood. And so when I read that, I was like, wow, that's why God deal with me this way. You know, but even with visions, the people able to see visions and see things, certain things before they happen, and my heart is pure for people's life to be changed. I don't ask for a lot. I don't need a lot. God has really been blessing me, but my heart is really for some people to get saved, and even if the ones who don't save, if I'm able to help someone be able to get off their feet, if I can be able to speak to someone to prevent them to commit suicide, taking their own life, if I can help a marriage couple, that's going through, if I can help someone at a funeral, just speak a word at a funeral and be a blessing to someone, I'm willing to give my time. That's why I don't charge for funerals. I don't charge to counsel anyone. I don't even take a pastor's salary. Anything people offer me something, I say give it to the church because God has truly blessed me in a special way, and I would rather see the kingdom of God grow and someone's life change because I know that my walk, that things that I see God doing, He have already taken care of me. I already have a place in the kingdom. And so when I'm able to see someone smile, a young girl who cannot afford to buy a dress because she's want to join some type of organization or debutante and she can't even afford it, her parents can't afford it, and our family can be a blessing to them, man, that brings more joy to me than anything. When I see a young man say, hey, I'm tired of this life and I want something different, and I'm able to speak a word to them and to help them, even though I lost my own son, and when I can care about a young man who had killed my son, but at the same time, when I found out was killed in the same type of fashion, that I sit there and cried for 2 weeks, not knowing why I was crying, trying to decide, is this a cry of because vengeance is done, or was this another type of crying that I'm going through? And then when the Lord spoke to my heart and told me what those tears was really for, that another soul was lost and I was grieving for that soul. That mean more to me than anything, Dave. It mean more to me than anything.
Tommy, I want to go back and go over that just a little bit more because this really touches me, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
People think about justice in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
To some of them, justice is vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a career as a federal prosecutor, and a lot of people went to prison because of my prosecution of cases where we needed to step in and stop some things that were happening. Most of it was drug trafficking things, later terrorism. We try to intervene. And some people look at the criminal justice system as these people need to be punished for these things. And I'll tell you, I came to the conclusion that we need to move from a punishment paradigm of justice, perspective of justice, to a problem-solving and healing paradigm of justice. We got some problems. People got some behavior that's a danger to the community. We need to deal with the problem, but they're a child of God too.
Yes,
The
that's
people
right.
I prosecuted, they're my spiritual brothers or sisters.
Mm.
And so we try to deal with it as a problem solving rather than out of anger and vengeance. Now, I came to the conclusion that justice is healing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a combination of accountability plus healing. Justice is making things right.
Yes, yeah.
Now, you knew, apparently from your story here, what you've just said, who it was who killed your son.
Yes, yes, yeah. My oldest son, my 16 and my oldest son, they just 2 years apart from each other. They real close. And so he heard through the streets who the young man was that actually killed my son, his brother. And so when he told me about it, you know, it wasn't until years later that the man who killed my son was gunned down the same way, but he knew about it, so he shared it with me. And then once I found out, that's when uh, those tears started shedding about this young man's life was gone.
So, how did you feel toward this young man when you first found out that he was the one who had killed your son, and over time, up to the time that you learned that he himself had been killed in the same manner?
Well, good question. The week my son got killed, or a couple weeks as my son was killed, I was talking to one of the officers in downtown East St. Louis, and as she was talking to me, uh, it was more of a negative vibes I was getting from her about the young man that had killed my son. One of the things I said to her was, "I don't feel that way." I said, "That's another person that life is gone, not physical death, but spiritual death. And that's another person we need to reach out to." I didn't feel the way she felt. I had already had forgiveness in my heart already. Now I had to see it be manifest and work to the point where now I found out who actually did it. Now let me put my faith to work and really, show and feel the compassion for a young man who has lost their life. And so the whole time, like I say, it was years from that first time, the working with the officer till then. I did not harbor anything. I did not harbor anything. No hatred feeling anything. Lord, I want to just stay focused on ministry, doing what God had ordained me to do. And again, my heart, I spent a lot of time before I became a pastor, or even before I became a pastor, I was the president of our evangelist team, Dave, at one of the other churches before I became a pastor. And I would rent tents with my own money, and I bought musical instruments with my own money. And I would take a group out every week and we would go out like in 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'd be knocking on the doors like Jehovah Witnesses do, passing out flyers, doing tent revivals and different things like that. And that's what God had showed me when the young man was died, when I was crying. He took me back to show me all the things that I was doing to try to save people, to try to speak to people life. This is not a person, let me know, this is not a person that is grieving for revenge, but this is a person here that is grieving because a soul is lost. He showed me all that, just like when he showed me with my son, with the bubble. He showed me all that. And with him showing it, that was just a confirmation where my heart was really at. And so even during that time, that's what made me love. And the more I had a relationship with God, the more I was close I got to Christ, the more I wanted to love more on people, the more I wanted to be more dedicated in the work that I'm doing today.
You know, what you're talking about is the Sermon on the Mount. Love
Yeah,
your enemies.
yeah.
Pray for those who despitefully use you.
Yes.
And who, just to paraphrase, who do you harm and
Yeah.
bring grief into your life and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And you just experienced God, it seems to me. And through that, you help others experience God in a healing, remarkable way.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone reacts that way. And yet here you are, throughout this whole conversation, you have this infectious smile on your face. You did when I met you down last Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the light, it seems to me, that
Yeah.
comes into your life as a result of having the attitudes that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about problem solving.
Well,
Because, okay, go ahead.
before you hit on that, because you asked about forgiveness, right, or something in that term, uh, and realize the key is understanding and reading the scriptures, right? And we talk about how Jesus forgave, and we can talk about how Joseph forgave his brothers. And see, what happened was God had to take away the pain that we experienced. And in the book of Genesis, chapter 40, in that area, God said he gave him Joseph a son, Manasseh, and he took away the pain he experienced in his father's house. And so part of that healing with the relationship with God, right? God had to remove that pain I was feeling, from losing. And I believe the way God do it is that based on that relationship that we have with him, you know, he would carry our burdens. He will remove the yoke that we experience. He will comfort us and give us peace that surpasses all the understanding. That we're focused not on the pain that we were injured by, but we're focused more on the love that he gives us. I just wanted to say that.
Well, you can see that you've experienced it and you experience it even as you talk about it. So let's talk about problem solving. Okay,
Yeah.
so here's a young man who took the life of your son, and
Uh-huh.
I don't know him,
Mm-hmm.
but I know that there are a lot of people, including people that I've interviewed as part of this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
who have killed people.
Uh-huh.
And yet at the same time, some of them are some of the most kind, remarkable human beings that I have met.
Mm-hmm.
But in their youth, they lived in an environment in which to survive and thrive. They needed or felt the need to pick up the gun. One of
Mm-hmm.
them, in an episode, Michael Tafoya, said, I decided This guy's a straight A student, good family, but he was getting shot at, including as he's walking along with his mother. He said, I decided that if I'm going to survive in this neighborhood, it was a little village up in Chicago, a suburb of Chicago. If I'm going to survive, if I'm going to be able to protect my family, I need to become what I fear. And he became the most feared gang member in his community. He hadn't been a member of a gang, but he made a deliberate decision to do it so that he could survive and protect his family. He ended up going to prison for a long time for murder. But if you listen to the episode with Michael Tafoya, I think you'll see this is a remarkable thing. This is so different than what people envision. They envision people who commit murders and things as being just somehow evil people. And yet, how can such a nice guy have done such a horrible thing as he did? Yeah. And listening to his story changes perspectives. It changed mine when I listened to it when I first heard it. I used to work in the governor's office as director of public safety policy, and I met Michael and Eddie Bocanegra and other people. And I met Lisa Daniels, who in episode 16 is someone like you whose son was killed and who had a forgiving heart. And these stories just changed my view of justice and needed to be told. Now, you're surrounded by stories, people with stories. Now, there are people who seem to be just determined to hurt other people, and that's a problem, and they need to be stopped. Yes. And there are people who do it because of the environment that they're in and the circumstances they're in. And like Michael Tafoya, they decide, if I'm going to survive and protect my family, I need to become what I fear. And they pick up the gun. Tell us, what do you see in your community? And you're right next door to East St. Louis. I mean, for those who don't know, it's just across the river, the Mississippi River from St. Louis, these two communities. And there are a lot of young men and probably young women, but young men in particular, who pick up the gun and they get into conflicts with each other. Things happen and people get shot and killed. How do you deal with that? How do we, let's get real. What are the causes as you see it, and what are the solutions as you see them?
Well, when I work for the government when I'm not pastor. I've been working for the government for over 40 years.
In what capacity?
IT cybersecurity. And yesterday I had to take a young man to get his card reader reset. And as I was driving the car with him, we was just talking in general. And then all of a sudden he said, I trust you. He said, you make me feel comfortable. Now, he wasn't one of my employees. He was another supervisor employee. But I don't know, I volunteered to take him. And supervisor could have took him, his own supervisor could have took him. But the day before, I told her, I take him down there. God works in mysterious ways, right? So I took him down, and he said, I trust you. And he started telling me his story. And I sit there and listen to his story. They say that he have anger issues, and other places he worked with, he would got fired or something, or they was getting ready to get rid of him, and then he ended up taking jobs after jobs. But he started telling me his story. He started telling me about when he was young, and his grandfather, mother sent him to the grandfather's home in the South, and how he had to pick cotton, how he watched his brother knocked over some type of flower or some cotton or something. It was just one stalk, and he said he sit there and watched the slave master, look at him, and he looked at his grandfather. Grandfather looked at him, And then he said his grandfather started whipping the child. While he was whooping, a whole lot of more of the flowers of cotton started falling down. And he said when he got to whooping, the slave master looked at him, smiled, and rode on off. He said that affected me a lot. He said then when I went to grade school and junior high, he said people was picking on me and stuff. Went to high school, same scenario. Joined the military. He was overlooked. He had the highest score when he took his test, but he was overlooked. When they wouldn't even train him. They would train the Caucasian soldiers, but he didn't have the one to train him. When they would partner up, they wouldn't even partner up with him. They would partner up, and so he said
So
that
he's black.
yeah, he's black. Yeah. And so he's telling me this story and I can feel his pain, you know. And so we have a lot of individuals out there has been raised in dysfunctional families and have traumatic experience. And those things it follows with them and cause darkness, you know. And when it causes darkness, if people don't watch it, darkness going to override the good, right? You know, and so if we don't find a way out, you know, and so we have to be in position to be willing to hear the hearts of people, what they are experiencing and what they go through. And see, we ignore it because we're not there. We done made it through, you know, but we forget about what someone else went through or what they might have went through. Because some of us could be just a step away from pulling the gun, taking our own life or the life of someone else. But if we were to step in, we can make a difference. There's a movie out there now called Marvel's Thunderbolt. And my daughter took me to watch it. And when afterwards, she said, "Daddy, what do you think?" I looked at it and I said, "This is what I think." I said, it was the Marvel characters, they was there. And then there was another guy, his name was Bob. And he was not really a Marvel character, really. He was just someone that was looking to belong. And so he went out researching, looking for something, and then some scientists found him to start doing tests on him. Then that's how he got his little superpower and stuff. But as the story goes on, this darkness started taking over. And this darkness was taken over because Bob had experienced traumatic experience when he was young. How his parents was treating him and everything else. And the only thing he wanted to do was something to belong, to be loved, to be embraced, someone to care about him. With one of the Avengers girls, one of them superheroes, and she started getting close to him and hearing him talk and stuff. And when the monster or whatever it was started taking over, she sacrificed herself, right, to get close to him. When she got close to him, you know, she started telling him how much she loved him and didn't care, while the darkness kept telling him, no, they don't care for you and all that stuff. And the only thing he wanted to do was belong, want somebody to love him. And so the other Marvel people, they jumped in this place where the first lady was at. They jumped in there too. And what happened is all of them embraced him. As they embraced Bob, that darkness started fading away and Bob was healed. Right? We have to we have to embrace people. We have to love people because we don't know what individuals have went through. You know, we have a lot of single home parent homes, just a mother in a home. Sometimes, you know, a father could have raped them or drugs and all this type of stuff, poor and everything else, you know. We have to recognize that economically the people are hurting, and not only economically but also spiritually as well. So those that are stronger in the faith, we have to stand up, right? that knows the difference, that knows the adversary, that knows the wiles of the devil, how he's subtle and do things to trigger. We have to have the compassion and empathy and be more attentive to what our young people might be going through. We have to open our eyes. We can't be so religious that we forget those who might be going through. Because Jesus came here to die for those that were what? Lost. To heal the sick. And we have a lot of sick people, and especially young people. So we have to reach out and embrace them. So I say that all those who are willing, let us come together as a community. Let us treat this young child here just as our own. If they need clothes or shoes, why can't we come together, provide shoes and clothes for them? And I know one of the presidents said, leave no child behind, but we leaving them behind because that child might not be as smart as the other one. And so we do leave them behind. But how about not only focus on the ones who's getting their A's and B's, but do a little special attention to the ones who may be struggling a little bit, showing them something different that they can achieve. Maybe just the way you're doing it ain't working, but maybe we need to make a curriculum for you so you can achieve, so you can be successful. So I'm looking at different things, different avenues. How can we reach our children? We can't always depend on the government to do it for us. It starts at home. It have to start at home. And so if we can teach our children, and if we can teach the parents more about moral responsibilities, more about God, and bring them in, and then teach their children. Ain't that what Deuteronomy chapter 6 says? Train up a child in the ways to go. When they get older, they shall not depart. And then all the other scriptures in Deuteronomy chapter 6. Don't forget about God. Bring God back into the picture. And if I'm not mistaken, I know they say they didn't took prayer out of school, but you still can sit up in prayer outside of the school. You maybe can make arrangements, on the playground or somewhere else. If maybe the teachers won't get involved or the principal, but maybe you can get a group of students to get together and pray with them. But the work is great, so that's where I believe that we have failed our children, is that we have not went back to the foundation and having more of those general conversations in our home and talk more about God. And then those that are not in our homes to have more compassion and empathy and hear their heart.
Well, 1 John 4:8, God is love. Not literally, but he embodies it. And what I hear you saying, me coming from a law enforcement background, but also being a person of faith, in particular Christian faith. Well, I hear in a community that may be torn by gun violence and everything that is part of the brew that gets stirred up that creates that environment. A police response is absolutely necessary. There has to be some intervention, but the police response may contain the level of violence. It may hold people who get caught, and that's probably not that high a percentage of people, but hold them accountable to the law, answerable to the community in the best way the law enforcement system knows how. May be able to reduce the number of guns that are available in a community, because that's the key. Conflict plus guns equals violence. But what you're talking about is not trying to contain the problem, trying to hold people accountable and solve the problem that way, or trying to remove all the guns out of a community, which is unrealistic in our current reality. I'm sure you think all those things are important, but what you're talking about is the community recognizing and addressing the problem as a community, not the government,
Yeah.
but the community, and recognizing, just like the analogy that you just shared about, the movie that you watched, that was powerful. When people, what do young men, what do they really need?
Yeah. What they
And
need.
trying to address what they need that's causing them to find love in all the wrong places, so to speak. Because I'll tell you, gangs do that. They're like a substitute for family and their security.
Yeah.
Well, if you could find love and security and prosperity without turning to crime and gangs, people do it.
Yeah.
It's the absence of that drives the problem. So you're talking about a community-based solution, and not just a community-based solution, but a faith-based community solution. Interventions.
It have to be. Taking their guns is not going to solve this problem, because men know how to kill. They'll take a stick. They'll take a pencil and kill someone. They'll choke someone. You take every gun off the street, and man, if their heart is not right, they know how to kill and will kill. But if you change the heart, if you change to the point where they care more about humanity, more about God, and have love for each other, and be respectful and be able to communicate with each other, even in our differences, then that's the key. But the top key is bringing God back into the picture, so we can understand morality, what's important, and have respect for each other, no matter what color you are, what nationality, anything. You just love on your brother, and you're going to try to make sure your brother is okay, or your sister is okay. Those are the types of things we have to bring back to the heart of man. That has to be done first, because anything else we try to do, it's just going to escalate to something else. But if I can change your heart, because I ain't always been Pastor Tommy Smith. I was one of those kids running the streets back in before I got saved. And even my book said the number of wives that I had back then. At the time, I didn't know the Lord. My dad, he loved women. And he ran the streets and everything else. I thought that was cool what I was seeing him do. See, I didn't have that. And I just wanted time for me to say, I wanted something different. I didn't want to live that life anymore. I wanted something different. But it took something to spark that. Men and women knocking on the door, that talking about God to me, and those things resonate with me. It was I was in the 8th grade, and one of my classmates, she sung this song, "I'm going up and yonder to be with my Lord." And that was in 8th grade, all the way up to adulthood and past before I got saved. That song stuck with me. That was one of the main songs I remembered. Years later, after I became pastor, she ended up having cancer, and I went to visit her. And guess what I sung?
I got a pretty good idea.
I sung that same. I told her, I said, I remember that song. And that song changed my life. I didn't know that many gospel songs, but that song there, when she sung that, stuck with me. Can you imagine someone come to you and speak something to you and it sticks with you? Not saying I'm going to change overnight, but that's a seed that was planted that forever resided in my heart. And that's the things that we do. Put a seed in somebody's heart, these young men's heart. Speak to them, embrace them. Let them know that we care for them. Show them how to be productive, how to be entrepreneurs, business men and women. Give them an opportunity. So you have to give, so you have to even help them get a business plan. So you have to even invest maybe $1,000, 500, get the business going, help them going, and be there to mentor them, tutor them throughout the process. And then their friends jump on, hey, look what I'm doing here. They helping me do this, start my own business, open my own bank, have my own grocery store.
Hope.
Hope and hope.
Yeah, I think a lot of the propensity toward violence is because people don't have hope.
Come on in, yeah.
They got nothing to lose.
What if you don't have hope? What you got?
You got nothing to lose.
You don't have nothing to lose, you know. And so that's why we have to be in position to give them hope, to let them know that there's a better way to live. My brothers, they joined the military early, and they would come and get me when they would come to town, and they would take me to the various bases and go into those various bases. And y'all like, you know what? I like this. I like to be able to have my own car, my own apartment, and everything else in a different environment, and not just seeing East St. Louis or seeing some of the roughest areas in town. I wanted something different. I still can go to these different places to achieve, and then bring that finance back, just like Jackie Joyner did, to help my community be a better community. Bringing resources, bringing organizations different back into the community because I have reached that plateau. Now I'm bringing it back. I'm sowing back in our community. And then again, and I'm partnership with other organizations. I'm not trying to do it all myself or try to have everything fall under my umbrella. I'm part in a partnership with other organizations that have some resources and access to economic development. And I'm bringing all those things back into the city. There's a place not too far where I stay. It's called Olivet. And at one time it was a nice area, but now they did eminent domain. But now you see all these stores, Targets on this one strip, Chick-fil-A, and all these other stores, hotels. They building high-rise apartment condos and everything. Somebody had a vision. Somebody had a vision that they can take a plighted area and build it up way better than what it was. The same thing we can do in East St. Louis and our other communities. It just takes someone with a vision and being able to partnership with other people that's like-minded to provide jobs for those young people that's out there. How many you can get? Just try. You might can't get them all, but try to get whoever you can get. Because that person might have a connection with someone else to help pull that young person out or that other person out. But if we all just do our part and not just to think of on our own, think of, I got mine and that's it. And then everybody else got to get their own. But if we all just do our part in partnership with each other, we can make a difference in our community. We can make a difference. It starts with what they say, charity starts at home, then go abroad. You know what I'm saying? Let's start in our own communities.
Well, Pastor Tommy Smith, you are living what you're preaching. You're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk.
Thank you.
God bless you for that.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna just pause for a moment. I'm gonna come back to you, but I'd like to talk to the people who are watching or listening. This message from Pastor Tommy Smith is powerful. It's important. People are worried about crime. They're worried about our young people that are living in communities where there's a high level of propensity for violence. There are people who are living in those communities who are living in fear of violence. And Pastor Smith is talking about people who, from a problem-solving standpoint, How do you address the problems? What are the problems? And what are the solutions? And his message deserves to be spread and heard and magnified. And that depends in large measure on you. Because the way things work with YouTube or other algorithms and social media, if you hit the like button or subscribe button, and if you share it with others, then YouTube will send, if you're watching the video portion of this, will send a suggestion of this episode or clips that we post as shorts or social media reels. We'll send it to your friends, because if you like it and you thought it was valuable, maybe they would like it and find it valuable. So don't just sit and listen and walk away from it. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and it will magnify not only Tommy's voice, but it'll magnify the voice of others. Others who, like Skyla and Gloria last week, like Eddie Bocanegra, Michael Tafoya, Linda Daniels, others that have been on this program. It will magnify their voice. It will change people's perspectives. And with that, it can change public policy. We can do a better job at justice. And so I'm asking you, do your part, just something simple. Just hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Share a link on your social media. I'm serious. Make a difference.
Yes.
Now, Pastor Smith, it's been an honor having you on this program. And as you can tell, this is powerful stuff.
Yes, it is.
And I want that your voice to be magnified.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Really do, because we need to get the word out. People are hurting, especially as we're in a time of uncertainty. And we have to address the issues that we are faced today. Tyler Perry have a movie out right now called Straw. I don't know if you have seen it yet. And it deals with economics. It deals with the economic that how people cannot afford medicine to take care of their sick children. It deals with post-traumatic syndrome. It deals with the lack of empathy and compassion people don't have for individuals. But it's a very powerful movie that if we were to just really take a look and see what the messages are all about, we can help those that are going through. Like I said, some of us is just a step away. We can help get the guns off the street. We can help change the heart of our young men and young women from committing crimes, the type of crimes they are committing today. If we would just step forward and do our due diligence and put the work in, we can make a difference.
I'll tell you what, let's end on that note.
Amen. Well, God bless you, Dave. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this podcast.
For another powerful Justice Voices story of healing through forgiveness, listen to episode 16, in which Lisa Daniels shares the story of what brought her to not only forgive the man who killed her son, but also ask the judge for leniency at the man's sentencing. And learn about the Center for Restorative Justice Practice she founded in her son's name, the Darren B. Easterling Center for Restorative Practices. Keep on listening to the Justice Voices podcast for more voices that need to be heard about justice, healing, and better ways to achieve both. To do that, hit the follow or subscribe buttons. See you again soon.